Lucas Hale never imagined that one exhausted joke, spoken in a rain-soaked parking lot to the most intimidating woman he'd ever worked for, would become the turning point between surviving and actually living. That night, drenched and desperate, he crossed a line he didn't mean to cross. What happened next didn't just surprise him. It quietly dismantled everything he thought he knew about strength, loneliness, and second chances. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. I want to see just how far this story travels. Now, let's dive in. The rain came down like punishment. Lucas Hale stood under the flickering overhang of the warehouse loading dock, water streaming off the brim of his work cap, his jacket soaked through to the skin. His shift had ended 20 minutes ago, but the bus wasn't running. The transit app on his cracked phone screen simply read, "Service suspended due to weather conditions." He exhaled slowly, watching his breath fog in the cold air. His son, Jamie, was home with Mrs. Alvarez from downstairs. She'd agreed to watch him until 8. It was already 7:45. "Damn it," he muttered, swiping rain from his face. Across the lot, beneath the harsh glare of a sodium light, a sleek black sedan idled near the executive entrance. Lucas recognized it immediately. Vivian Moore's car, his boss. The woman who ran operations for the entire distribution center with the kind of precision that made grown men check their work twice. She emerged from the building, umbrella already open, her charcoal trench coat immaculate despite the downpour. Even from 50 feet away, Lucas could see the sharpness in her posture, the way she moved through the world like she was solving an equation with every step. He looked away quickly, pulling his phone out again as if staring at the suspended service notification would somehow change reality. "Hale!" Her voice cut through the rain, clear, direct. Lucas turned, surprised. Vivian was walking toward him, umbrella angled against the wind. She stopped a few feet away, her dark eyes scanning him with the same analytical attention she gave inventory reports. "You're still here," she said. It wasn't a question. "Bus isn't running," Lucas replied, shoving his phone into his pocket. "I'll figure something out." "The city's shut down half the routes. You'll be waiting until morning." He knew that. He just didn't have a better option. "I'll call a rideshare." "In this weather? You'll pay triple and wait an hour." She studied him for a moment longer, then sighed. "Get in the car." Lucas blinked. "Ma'am?" "I'm offering you a ride, Hale. Don't make it complicated." He hesitated, water dripping from his sleeves. Vivian Moore didn't offer rides. She didn't offer anything that wasn't contractually obligated. She was fair, yes, never cruel, never arbitrary, but she kept a wall between herself and everyone else. Management on one side, workers on the other, clean lines. "I don't want to put you out," Lucas said carefully. "You're not. I'm going that direction anyway." She turned without waiting for his answer, walking back toward the sedan. Lucas stood frozen for 3 more seconds, then jogged after her. The interior of Vivian's car smelled like leather and something faintly floral. Lavender, maybe. Lucas sat stiffly in the passenger seat, hyper-aware of how his wet jacket was probably ruining the upholstery. He kept his hands folded in his lap, staring straight ahead as Vivian navigated out of the parking lot and onto the empty streets. The rain hammered against the windshield. The wipers worked overtime, barely keeping up. "Where do you live?" Vivian asked. "9th and Elmhurst," Lucas said. "The apartment's near the old cinema." She nodded, adjusting her route on the dashboard GPS. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the rhythmic thump of the wipers and the low hum of the engine. Lucas cleared his throat. "Thank you. For this." "It's fine." "Still, I appreciate it." Vivian glanced at him briefly, then back at the road. "You've been here, what, 6 months?" 7, Lucas said. "Started last June." "You're reliable, consistent. That's worth something." It wasn't praise exactly, just an observation, but coming from Vivian Moore, it felt significant. "I try," Lucas said quietly. "You do more than try. Your error rate is lower than most of the crew, and you don't call out." She paused. "You have a kid, don't you?" Lucas tensed slightly. He didn't talk about Jamie at work. Didn't want anyone thinking he'd use his son as an excuse for anything. "Yeah, a son. He's 8. That's why you pick up the weekend shifts." It wasn't a question, but Lucas nodded anyway. Yeah. Vivian didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was softer, just barely. That's smart. Stability matters. Lucas looked out the window, watching the rain blur the streetlights into smears of gold and white. He thought about the overdue electric bill on his kitchen counter. The dentist appointment he'd been postponing for Jamie because the copay was too high. The way his son asked, every few weeks, if they could get a pet, something small, like a hamster, and how Lucas always said maybe next year, buddy. Stability. Sure. They turned onto 9th Street. Lucas was about to point out his building when Vivian slowed the car, frowning at something ahead. What the hell? She muttered. Lucas leaned forward. The entire block was dark. No streetlights. No apartment windows glowing. Just black. Power's out, Lucas said, his stomach sinking. Vivian pulled up to the curb in front of his building. Lucas could see a utility truck parked halfway down the block, orange cones scattered around an open manhole. A worker in a reflective vest waved a flashlight, gesturing at something underground. Looks like a transformer blew, Vivian said. Lucas nodded slowly. He was already doing the math in his head. No power meant no heat, no lights. Jamie would be scared. Mrs. Alvarez was 73 and used a CPAP machine at night. She couldn't stay in a building without electricity. I need to get upstairs, Lucas said, reaching for the door handle. Hale. He paused. Vivian was staring out at the darkened building, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to him. How long do you think the power will be out? No idea. Could be hours. Could be all night. She drummed her fingers once on the steering wheel, thinking. Then she said something Lucas never expected. You can't stay here. I'll be fine. I've got candles. You have an 8-year-old and no heat. It's 38 degrees outside. Her tone left no room for argument. Come back to my place. Just for tonight. You can sleep on the couch. Your son can take the guest room. When the power's back, you go home. Lucas stared at her. Miss Moore, I can't, but it's Vivian, and yes, you can. She met his eyes. I'm not asking, Hale. I'm telling you, get your kid and let's go. Jamie sat in the back seat, clutching his backpack and staring wide-eyed at the interior of the car. He hadn't said much since Lucas retrieved him from Mrs. Alvarez's darkened apartment, but his silence was loud. Lucas could feel the boy's curiosity radiating off him in waves. Vivian's house was in Riverside Terrace, a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets and houses that had actual front yards. She pulled into the driveway of a 2-story Craftsman with a wraparound porch and neat flower beds that somehow looked maintained even in the middle of a storm. Wow, Jamie whispered. Lucas shot him a look. Behave. Inside, the house was warm and softly lit. Hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves, a fireplace with a mantel that held a single framed photograph. Vivian, younger, standing beside an older woman who had the same sharp eyes. Take your shoes off, Vivian said, shrugging out of her coat. I'll get you both towels. Lucas and Jamie stood awkwardly in the entryway, dripping onto the mat. Jamie looked up at his father, eyes wide. Lucas just shook his head slightly. I don't know either, kid. Vivian returned with 2 thick towels and a stack of clothes, sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. These might be big on you, she said to Jamie, handing him the pile. But they're dry. Bathroom's down the hall. Go change. Jamie took the clothes carefully, like they were made of glass, and disappeared down the hallway. Vivian handed Lucas a towel. There's another set for you in the guest room. Upstairs, second door on the left. Thank you, Lucas said quietly. Really? You didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. She looked at him evenly. But you're here now, so stop apologizing and go get dry. Lucas nodded and headed upstairs. 20 minutes later, Lucas came back down wearing borrowed clothes that smelled faintly of cedar and laundry detergent. Jamie was already in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the couch, a mug of hot chocolate in his hands. Vivian sat in the armchair across from him, a cup of tea balanced on her knee. Your son tells me he likes space, Vivian said as Lucas entered. Jamie grinned. I'm going to be an astronaut. That's a solid plan, Vivian said seriously. You'll need to be good at math. I'm okay at math. My dad helps me. Lucas sat down beside Jamie, ruffling his hair. When I can remember how fractions work. Vivian's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Fractions are a nightmare. Right? Lucas said, surprised. I swear they didn't teach them this way when I was a kid. They didn't. The curriculum's changed 3 times since we were in school. She took a sip of her tea. I had to relearn division last year to help my nephew with homework. Felt like learning a new language. Lucas laughed, a real laugh, the kind that surprised him. I thought I was just dumb. You're not dumb, Hale. The system's just unnecessarily complicated. They fell into an easy rhythm after that. Jamie talked about school, about his favorite teacher, about the science project he was working on. Vivian listened with genuine attention, asking questions that weren't patronizing. Lucas watched, quietly stunned as his boss, his intimidating, no-nonsense boss, engaged his son like he was a colleague, not a child. Eventually, Jamie's eyes started to droop. Lucas caught Vivian's glance. Guest room's ready, she said. I'll show you. The guest room was upstairs, decorated simply but comfortably. A double bed with a thick quilt, a nightstand with a lamp, a window that looked out over the backyard. Jamie climbed into bed without protest, exhaustion finally catching up. Lucas tucked him in, smoothing the blanket over his shoulders. Dad? Jamie's voice was small. Yeah, buddy? Is Ms. Moore nice? Lucas smiled. Yeah, she is. She's scary at first, but then she's not. Yeah, Lucas said softly. That's pretty accurate. Jamie's eyes fluttered closed. Within minutes, his breathing evened out. Lucas stood there for a moment, watching his son sleep. Then he quietly left the room, pulling the door almost closed behind him. Downstairs, Vivian was in the kitchen, rinsing out the mugs. Lucas hesitated in the doorway. He's out, Lucas said. Vivian nodded. Kids crash hard when they feel safe. Lucas leaned against the doorframe, suddenly aware of how surreal this entire night had been. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to. I do, though. He gestured vaguely. This isn't normal. Vivian dried her hands on a towel, then turned to face him. You're right. It's not. She crossed her arms, studying him. But you looked like you needed help, so I helped. Lucas swallowed. There was something in her gaze, something that made him feel seen in a way he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't pity. It wasn't charity. It was just recognition. And maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the warmth of the house, or the fact that someone had shown him kindness without asking for anything in return. Maybe it was the way Vivian stood there, arms crossed, looking at him like he was a person and not just a line item on a staffing report. Whatever it was, Lucas's brain short-circuited. You're, he cleared his throat. You're really pretty. I mean, not that that's, I just meant, the words died in his throat as he realized what he'd just said. Vivian's expression didn't change. She just raised one eyebrow, waiting. Lucas felt his face go hot. I'm sorry, that was so inappropriate. I didn't mean, I wasn't trying to. Hale. He stopped. Vivian's voice was calm, measured. Take a breath. Lucas did. His heart was hammering. You're exhausted, Vivian said. You've had a long day. You're in an unfamiliar place and your brain is misfiring. I get it. I didn't mean to I know. She stepped forward just slightly, and her expression softened, not much, but enough. Lucas, listen to me. You're not in trouble. You're not fired. You're not a creep. You're just tired. She paused. But we're going to set something straight right now. Lucas nodded mutely. You're my employee, Vivian said firmly. I offered you help because you needed it, not because I wanted anything from you, not because I expected anything in return. You understand? Yes, ma'am. And if you ever feel uncomfortable here, if you want to leave, if you want to call someone else, if you need space, you say so. No consequences, no weirdness. Got it? Lucas nodded again, shame still burning in his chest. I really am sorry. Vivian held his gaze for a moment longer, then nodded. Apology accepted. Now go get some sleep. Couch is already made up. Boisson. Lucas lay on the couch in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet except for the faint sound of rain still pattering against the windows. A blanket was draped over him, soft and warm. He felt like an idiot. "You're really pretty. Jesus Christ, what was wrong with him?" But Vivian hadn't yelled, hadn't kicked him out, hadn't made him feel like garbage. She'd just handled it, set boundaries, moved on. Lucas closed his eyes, replaying the conversation. The way she'd looked at him, not with anger but with something close to understanding, like she knew what it was like to say the wrong thing when you were too tired to think straight. He thought about the way she'd talked to Jamie, the way she'd listened, really listened, when his son explained his dreams about space, the way she'd made hot chocolate without being asked. This woman, his boss, this intimidating, sharp-edged woman, had opened her home to him, had seen him struggling and hadn't looked away. Lucas didn't know what to do with that, so he just lay there warm and dry for the first time in hours and let himself feel something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Gratitude. And beneath it, quieter, more dangerous, hope. Morning came soft and gray. Lucas woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of someone moving quietly in the kitchen. He sat up, disoriented, then remembered where he was. Vivian's house. The storm. The stupid thing he'd said. He groaned quietly, scrubbing his hands over his face. "Dad?" Lucas looked up. Jamie was standing at the bottom of the stairs, fully dressed, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Hey, buddy, you sleep okay?" "Yeah, Miss Moore made pancakes." Lucas blinked. "She what?" "Pancakes. Come on, they're really good." Jamie grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the kitchen. Vivian stood at the stove, flipping a pancake with the same calm precision she probably used to approve shipping manifests. She glanced over her shoulder as Lucas entered. "Morning," she said simply. "Morning," Lucas replied, his voice rough. "You didn't have to eat." "I know. Sit." Lucas sat. Jamie was already halfway through a stack, syrup pooling on his plate. Vivian set a plate in front of Lucas. 3 pancakes, perfectly golden. "Thank you," Lucas said quietly. Vivian poured herself a cup of coffee, then leaned against the counter. "Power's back on at your building. Got a text from the utility company an hour ago." Lucas nodded. "We'll get out of your hair then." "No rush. Finish breakfast first." They ate in companionable silence. Jamie chattered about a dream he'd had involving robots and dinosaurs. Vivian asked clarifying questions with a completely straight face, as if robot-dinosaur hybrids were a perfectly reasonable topic for breakfast conversation. Lucas watched them, something tight in his chest loosening just slightly. When they finally gathered their things to leave, Vivian walked them to the door. Jamie hugged her impulsively, just threw his arms around her waist and squeezed. Vivian looked startled for half a second, then gently patted his shoulder. "Take care, kiddo." "Thanks for the pancakes," Jamie said, beaming. "Anytime." Lucas met Vivian's eyes over his son's head. "Thank you. For everything." Vivian nodded once. "See you Monday, Hale." "See you Monday." The following week passed without incident. Lucas showed up early, worked his shifts, kept his head down. Vivian ran the floor with her usual efficiency. They didn't talk about the storm. Didn't talk about the night at her house. But something had shifted. It was subtle. The way Vivian paused by his station to ask if the new scheduling system was working. The way she didn't look through him anymore when she gave instructions. The way Lucas found himself less tense when she walked by. On Friday, as Lucas was clocking out, Vivian appeared beside him. "Hale, got a second?" His stomach dropped. "Yeah, of course." She gestured toward her office. Lucas followed, heart pounding. Vivian closed the door behind them and sat on the edge of her desk. "Relax, you're not in trouble." Lucas exhaled. "Okay." "I wanted to check in, make sure everything's fine. After last week." "It's fine," Lucas said quickly. "Really, I'm sorry again for what I said. That was out of line." "You already apologized. I already accepted. We don't need to keep revisiting it." She paused. "But I do want to make sure you're okay. You and your son." Lucas blinked. "We're okay. Power's been stable. Jamie's good." "Good." Vivian studied him for a moment. "You know, Hale, You don't have to carry everything alone. Lucas's throat tightened. I'm handling it. I know you are. But handling it and drowning look pretty similar from the outside. He didn't know what to say to that. Vivian's expression softened, just a fraction. If you ever need help, real help, not just a ride in a storm, you can ask. You know that, right? Lucas nodded, not trusting his voice. All right, get out of here. Have a good weekend. Lucas stood, then paused at the door. Miss Moore? Vivian. Vivian? Why did you help me that night? She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was quiet. Because I know what it's like to be alone, and I know what it's like when someone sees you anyway. Lucas held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Thank you. Go home, Lucas. He did. Brad. 2 weeks later, Jamie got sick. It started as a cough, then a fever. Then, in the middle of the night, Lucas woke to the sound of his son struggling to breathe. The ER was bright and cold and terrifying. Jamie lay on a hospital bed, an oxygen mask over his face, his small chest rising and falling too fast. The doctor said it was pneumonia, bacterial. They'd need to admit him. Start I-5 antibiotics. Monitor him closely. Lucas sat beside the bed, holding Jamie's hand, feeling the entire world narrow to the sound of his son's labored breathing. He called work at 6 in the morning, left a voicemail, said he wouldn't be in, didn't know when he'd be back. At 8, his phone buzzed. Vivian Moore. Where are you? Lucas stared at the text. Then, hands shaking, he typed a reply. Lucas. Hospital. Jamie's sick. Pneumonia. I'm sorry. I know we have the big shipment today. I'll make it up, I promise. The response came almost immediately. Vivian Moore. Don't apologize. Is he stable? Lucas. They're starting antibiotics, waiting to see if the fever breaks. Vivian Moore. Stay with him. The shipment can wait. Lucas read the message 3 times. Lucas. I can't just leave you short-staffed. Vivian Moore. Hale. Your son is in the hospital. Stay. With him. That's an order. Lucas felt something crack in his chest. He typed back, vision blurring. Lucas. Thank you. Vivian Moore. Keep me updated. Jamie's fever broke on the 3rd day. The antibiotics worked. The doctor said he could go home by the end of the week. Lucas barely slept. He stayed in the chair beside Jamie's bed, dozing in fitful intervals, jerking awake every time a monitor beeped. On the 4th day, there was a knock on the door. Lucas looked up. Vivian stood in the doorway, holding a paper bag and 2 cups of coffee. Figured you could use this, she said. Lucas stared at her. You didn't have to come. I know. She handed him a coffee and set the bag on the side table. Sandwich, eat. Lucas took the cup, too surprised to argue. Vivian pulled up a second chair and sat down, glancing at Jamie, who was asleep, his breathing finally steady. He looks better, she said. Yeah, fever's down. They think he'll be okay. Good. They sat in silence for a while. Lucas sipped the coffee, black, the way he liked it. How'd you know I take it black? He asked. Vivian gave him a sideways look. I pay attention, Hale. He smiled despite himself. After a moment, Vivian spoke again, her voice quieter. I meant what I said, about not carrying everything alone. Lucas looked at her. I don't know how to do anything else. I get that. She stared at the floor. I really do. There was something in her tone, something that made Lucas realize this wasn't just about him. You ever feel like you have to keep it together for everyone else? Vivian asked. Like if you stop, even for a second, everything falls apart? Lucas nodded slowly. Every day. Yeah, she exhaled. Me too. They sat there, 2 people who had spent years holding up the world, finally admitting how heavy it was. Thank you, Lucas said quietly. For this. For everything. Vivian looked at him, and for the first time, Lucas saw past the walls, saw the loneliness she carried, the exhaustion, the weight of always being the one in control. You're welcome, she said, and in that moment something shifted between them. Not romance. Not yet. But understanding. The kind that only comes when two people see each other clearly and choose not to look away. Jamie came home on a Saturday morning, pale but smiling, clutching a stuffed astronaut the nurses had given him. Lucas carried him up the stairs to their apartment, acutely aware of how light his son felt, how fragile. The medical bills were already piling up on the kitchen counter, invoices he hadn't opened yet, numbers he wasn't ready to face. But Jamie was alive. Jamie was home. Everything else could wait. "Can I watch cartoons?" Jamie asked, his voice still raspy. "Yeah, buddy, whatever you want." Lucas settled him on the couch with blankets and pillows, turned on the television, and stood there for a moment just watching his son breathe. Normal breaths. Easy breaths. His phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. "Vivian Moore." "He's home?" Lucas. "Yeah, just got in. He's good. Tired, but good." Vivian Moore. "That's a relief. Take the weekend. See you Monday if you're ready. If not, let me know." Lucas. "I'll be there Monday. Thank you. For everything." Vivian Moore. "Stop thanking me, Hale." Lucas smiled at the screen, then pocketed his phone and went to make Jamie lunch. Monday came faster than Lucas expected. He dropped Jamie off at school, his son protesting that he felt fine, that he didn't need to take it easy, that he could totally play kickball at recess. Lucas made him promise to sit out gym class anyway. Jamie rolled his eyes, but agreed. At the warehouse, Lucas clocked in and headed straight to his station. The floor was already buzzing with activity, forklifts beeping, pallets sliding, voices calling out orders. It felt normal, grounding. He was halfway through his first inventory check when Vivian appeared beside him. "Hale." He turned. "Morning." She studied him for a moment, her sharp eyes scanning his face. "You look like hell." "Thanks. You really know how to make a guy feel good about himself." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. "I'm serious. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" Lucas shrugged. "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." He sighed, setting down his scanner. "I slept enough. Jamie's back in school. I'm here. Everything's fine." Vivian didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. Instead, she handed him a clipboard. "New routing system for the back dock. Corporate rolled it out over the weekend. I need someone who won't screw it up on day one. That's you." Lucas took the clipboard, scanning the new layout. It was more efficient, streamlined the loading process, reduced redundant trips. "Smart." "This is good," he said. "I know, I designed it." Lucas looked up, surprised. "You did?" "Corporate gave us the parameters. I built the system." She crossed her arms. "Took me 3 weeks and about 100 spreadsheets, but it works." "It's really good, Vivian. This'll save us at least 20 minutes per truck." She looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. Then she nodded once. "Get it implemented. Train the dock crew. If anyone gives you trouble, send them to me." "Got it." She turned to leave, then paused. "Lucas." He looked at her. "If you need to leave early, if Jamie needs you, you tell me. You don't just disappear, understand?" "I won't disappear." "Good." She walked away, her stride as brisk and purposeful as always. Lucas watched her go, then looked back down at the clipboard. He realized, somewhere in the past few weeks, she'd started calling him Lucas instead of Hale. He wasn't sure when the shift had happened, but it had. The morning passed quickly. Lucas trained the dock crew on the new system, fielded questions, made adjustments on the fly. By lunch, they were running smoother than they had in months. He grabbed a sandwich from the break room and ate standing up, checking his phone for messages from Jamie's school. Nothing. Good. He was tossing his trash when Marcus, one of the senior loaders, dropped into the chair across from him. "Man, you're on fire today," Marcus said, grinning. "Moore's got you running the whole damn dock now." Lucas shrugged. "Just doing what she asked." "Yeah, but she doesn't usually ask people. She tells them. You notice that?" Lucas frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus leaned back, arms behind his head. "I've been here 5 years. Vivian Moore doesn't play favorites. But she's been different with you lately, checking in, asking questions. You two got something going on?" Lucas nearly choked. "What? No, absolutely not. Hey, I'm just saying, she drove you home a few weeks ago, right? People noticed. The bus wasn't running. She gave me a ride. That's it." Marcus held up his hand, still grinning. All right. Just seems like she's got a soft spot for you, that's all. She doesn't have a soft spot for anyone, Lucas said flatly. Maybe not, but she definitely has one for you. Lucas shook his head, standing up. You're reading into things that aren't there, Marcus. If you say so, man. Lucas walked away, but Marcus's words stuck with him. He thought about the hospital visit, the coffee, the way Vivian had sat beside him in that sterile room and admitted she knew what it was like to carry everything alone. That wasn't a soft spot. That was just humanity. Decency. Wasn't it? The afternoon shift was brutal. A delayed shipment threw off the entire schedule, and Lucas spent 3 hours rerouting trucks and reorganizing the loading queue. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, he was exhausted. He clocked out and headed for the exit, pulling his jacket on as he walked. Outside, the sky was already dark, the air sharp with the promise of winter. Lucas was halfway across the parking lot when he heard his name. Lucas? He turned. Vivian was standing by her car, keys in hand. Yeah? You eat today? He blinked. I had lunch. That was 7 hours ago. Lucas frowned. I'm fine. You keep saying that. She unlocked her car, then looked at him. There's a diner 2 blocks from here. Good burgers. I'm buying. Vivian, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm offering. Yes or no? Lucas hesitated. Every instinct told him to say no, to keep the boundaries clear, to not blur the lines between boss and whatever this was becoming. But he was tired and hungry, and the idea of going home to an empty apartment, Jamie was at a sleepover tonight, felt suddenly unbearable. Yeah, he said quietly. Okay. Vivian nodded and got in the car. The diner was small and worn, the kind of place that had been around for decades, and looked it. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, a jukebox in the corner that probably hadn't worked since 1987. They slid into a booth near the back, and a waitress appeared almost immediately with menus and coffee. You come here a lot? Lucas asked, wrapping his hands around the warm mug. Every Thursday, Vivian said. It's quiet, the food's decent. No one bothers me. Except tonight. She glanced up at him, and the corner of her mouth lifted. Tonight's different. They ordered burgers and fries for both of them and fell into an easy silence. Lucas sipped his coffee, watching the other diners. An older couple in the corner, not talking, just eating. A lone trucker at the counter, scrolling through his phone. Can I ask you something? Lucas said after a moment. Go ahead. Why'd you really offer me that ride, the night of the storm? Vivian set down her coffee, considering the question. You looked like you needed help. So did half the crew. You didn't offer them rides. True. She leaned back, studying him. You want the honest answer? Yeah. I saw you standing there in the rain, and I thought, here's someone who's trying, really trying, not just showing up, but working, caring. And I thought if I didn't help, no one else would. She paused. I've been that person before, the one standing in the rain. It sucks. Lucas absorbed that, the weight of her honesty settling between them. You ever feel like you're invisible? He asked quietly. Like you could disappear tomorrow and no one would notice? Every day, Vivian said without hesitation. Their food arrived, interrupting the moment. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the tension easing. Lucas hadn't realized how hungry he was until he bit into the burger. It was perfect, greasy, salty, exactly what he needed. Jamie's doing okay? Vivian asked after a few minutes. Yeah, he's at a friend's house tonight. First sleepover since the hospital. I almost didn't let him go. But you did. Yeah. He needs normal, needs to be a kid. Lucas dragged a fry through ketchup. I worry I'm screwing him up, you know? Working all the time, never having enough money, being tired. You're not screwing him up. How do you know? Because he's happy. I saw that. The night you stayed over. He's a good kid, Lucas. And good kids don't come from bad parents. Lucas felt something tight in his chest loosen. Thanks. I mean it. You're doing better than you think. They finished their meal, the conversation drifting to lighter topics. Jamie's obsession with space, Vivian's terrible attempts at gardening, the absurdity of corporate training videos. Lucas found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in weeks. When the check came, Vivian grabbed it before Lucas could reach for his wallet. "I said I was buying," she said firmly. "At least let me tip." "Fine." They left the diner and walked back to Vivian's car. The night was cold and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Lucas shoved his hands in his pockets, breathing in the crisp air. "Thank you," he said. "For dinner, for listening." "You're welcome." Vivian unlocked the car but didn't get in. Instead, she turned to face him. "Lucas, can I tell you something?" "Yeah." She hesitated, which was unusual for her. Vivian never hesitated. "I don't have a lot of people I can talk to." "Not really. Work is work. Everyone keeps their distance because I'm the boss. And outside of work," she trailed off, shrugging, "I'm alone most of the time." "I get that. I know you do. That's why I'm telling you." She met his eyes. "The last few weeks, talking to you, having someone who gets it, it's been nice. I don't want you to think I'm crossing a line. I'm not trying to make this complicated." "I don't think that," Lucas said quickly. "Good, because I value this. Whatever this is, friendship, I guess." She smiled slightly. "I'm not great at those." "You're doing fine." They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with something Lucas couldn't quite name. Not attraction exactly. Or maybe it was, but buried under layers of exhaustion and caution and the simple need for human connection. Vivian broke the silence first. "Get in. I'll drive you home." The ride back to Lucas's apartment was quiet but comfortable. When Vivian pulled up to the curb, Lucas turned to her. "You want to come up? I mean, just for coffee or something. Jamie's not home, so it's quiet, but..." He stopped, realizing how that sounded. "Sorry, that came out weird." Vivian laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine. "It's fine, but I should get home. Early meeting tomorrow." "Right, of course." He opened the door, then paused. "Vivian? Thanks for seeing me, for not looking away." Her expression softened. "Same to you, Lucas." He got out of the car and watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing into the night. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm. Lucas worked his shifts, picked up Jamie from school, navigated the endless balancing act of single parenthood. But something had changed. Work didn't feel like a grind anymore. It felt like a place he belonged. Vivian started assigning him more complex tasks: inventory audits, vendor negotiations, even sitting in on management meetings. She trusted him. And Lucas, who had spent years feeling like he was barely keeping his head above water, started to believe he was actually good at this. One afternoon, as Lucas was reviewing shipping manifests in Vivian's office, she looked up from her computer. "You ever think about moving up?" she asked. Lucas frowned. "Moving up where?" "Management. You've got the skills, the work ethic. You could be running this floor in a year if you wanted." "I don't have a degree." "Neither do I." Lucas stared at her. "Seriously?" "Seriously. I started on the floor, worked my way up, took night classes, got certifications, proved I could do the work." She leaned back in her chair. "You're already doing half my job, Lucas. You just don't have the title." "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You're not, but you will be." She held his gaze. "Think about it. No pressure. But the opportunity's there if you want it." Lucas nodded slowly, the idea settling into his mind like a seed. That night, after Jamie was asleep, Lucas sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and started writing. Goals, plans, things he wanted for himself and his son, a better apartment, savings, maybe even college someday. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to build. The next Friday, Vivian invited Lucas and Jamie to a minor league baseball game. Her nephew was playing, and she had extra tickets. Lucas almost said no, worried about blurring lines, about expectations, about all the ways things could get complicated. But Jamie's face lit up when Lucas mentioned it, so he said yes. The stadium was packed, the air thick with the smell of popcorn and hot dogs. Jamie bounced in his seat, clutching a foam finger Vivian had bought him. Vivian sat beside Lucas, relaxed in a way he'd never seen at work. She wore jeans and a team jersey, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Your nephew's good, Lucas said, watching the kid pitch a fastball that blazed past the batter. He's got potential. College scouts are already sniffing around. That must make you proud. It does. He's worked hard for it. She glanced at Lucas. Reminds me a little of you, actually. How so? Doesn't quit, even when things are tough. Lucas smiled. I've quit plenty of times, just never out loud. That's the secret, Vivian said. Quitting in your head doesn't count as long as you keep showing up. Jamie tugged on Lucas's sleeve. Dad, can I get ice cream? Yeah, buddy, go ahead. Jamie scrambled out of his seat and headed for the concession stand, Lucas watching him go. He's a great kid, Vivian said. He is. Sometimes I don't know how I got so lucky. It's not luck. You're raising him right. Lucas looked at her. You really believe that? I wouldn't say it if I didn't. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the game. At some point, Vivian's hand brushed against Lucas's on the armrest. Neither of them moved away. It was a small thing, barely noticeable, but it felt significant. After the game, they walked Jamie to Vivian's car, his foam finger waving wildly as he recounted every play. Vivian listened with patience, asking questions, engaging fully. Lucas watched them interact and felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the summer evening. On the drive home, Jamie fell asleep in the back seat, his head lolled against the window. Vivian glanced at him in the rearview mirror and smiled. Out cold, she said softly. He had a good time. Thank you for inviting us. I'm glad you came. They pulled up to Lucas's building. He unbuckled his seatbelt but didn't get out immediately. Vivian, can I ask you something personal? She turned to face him. Okay. You ever get lonely? I mean, really lonely. The kind where you're surrounded by people but still feel completely alone? Her expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across her face. All the time. How do you deal with it? Honestly, I don't. I just keep moving, keep working, keep my head down. She paused. But lately it's been easier. Because of this. Because of you. Lucas's breath caught. Vivian, I'm not saying that to make things weird. I just want you to know that you matter, to me, as a friend, as someone I trust. She looked away. I don't trust easily. Neither do I. I know. They sat there, the car idling, the streetlight casting long shadows across the dashboard. Lucas wanted to say something profound, something that would capture the complexity of what he felt. But words failed him. So instead, he reached out and squeezed her hand. Just once, brief and warm. Thank you, he said quietly. Vivian squeezed back. Anytime. Lucas got out of the car and carried Jamie upstairs. As he laid his son in bed, he thought about Vivian's words, about trust, about mattering, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone as he'd always believed. The following Monday, Lucas arrived at work to find a memo on the bulletin board. Corporate was implementing layoffs. 10% reduction across all facilities. The cuts would happen within the month. Lucas's stomach dropped. He'd survived layoffs before, barely. He couldn't afford to lose this job. Not now. Not when things were finally starting to feel stable. He found Vivian in her office, staring at her computer screen with an expression he recognized. Stress. The kind that came from impossible decisions. You saw the memo, she said without looking up. Yeah. I have to cut 5 people from this floor, Lucas swallowed. Am I one of them? Vivian's head snapped up. What? No, God, no. Lucas, you're safe, I promise. Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by guilt. Then who? I don't know yet. I'm still running the numbers. She rubbed her temples. This is the part of the job I hate. Lucas sat down across from her. Is there anything I can do? Unless you can convince corporate to reverse a decision made 3 levels above my head, no. I'm sorry you have to do this. It's the job. But her voice was hollow, defeated. Lucas stood. If you need to talk, I'm here. She looked at him, and for a moment her carefully constructed walls crumbled. I know, thank you. The week that followed was tense. Everyone on the floor knew the cuts were coming, but no one knew who would be affected. Productivity dropped. Morale tanked. Lucas did his best to keep things running smoothly, but the anxiety was contagious. On Thursday, Vivian called an all-staff meeting. She stood at the front of the warehouse, her expression neutral, and delivered the news. 5 names, 5 people who would be let go at the end of the month. Lucas watched her face as she spoke, saw the way she held herself together, the way she didn't flinch. But he also saw the cost, the weight she carried. After the meeting, people dispersed in silence. Lucas found Vivian in her office, door closed, blinds drawn. He knocked softly. "Come in." She was sitting at her desk, head in her hands. She looked up when he entered, and he saw the exhaustion etched into every line of her face. "You okay?" he asked. "No, but I will be." Lucas closed the door behind him and sat down. "You did what you had to do. Doesn't make it easier." "I know." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Vivian spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I hate this. I hate being the one who destroys people's lives. You didn't destroy anything. Corporate did. I'm the one who delivered the message. I'm the one they'll remember." Lucas leaned forward. "Vivian, listen to me. Those people know this wasn't your choice. They know you fought for them. You always fight for your people." She looked at him, eyes glistening. "You really believe that?" "I know it." Something broke in her then. The walls she'd held up for so long finally cracked. A single tear slid down her cheek and she wiped it away quickly, almost angrily. "I'm sorry," she said. "This is unprofessional." "It's human." She laughed bitterly. "I'm not supposed to be human. I'm supposed to be in control." "You can be both." Vivian shook her head, but she didn't argue. Instead, she just sat there, letting herself feel the weight of what she'd done. Lucas stayed with her until the tears stopped, until her breathing evened out, until she looked at him and managed a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," she said, "for staying. Where else would I be?" And in that moment, Lucas realized something that terrified and exhilarated him in equal measure. He cared about this woman, deeply, not just as a boss, not just as a friend, as someone who mattered, someone he couldn't imagine his life without. The realization didn't hit Lucas all at once. It crept up on him over the following days, settling into his chest like something both terrifying and inevitable. He found himself thinking about Vivian at odd moments, while making Jamie breakfast, while waiting for the bus, while lying in bed staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m, the way she'd looked in her office after the layoffs, vulnerable and raw, the way she'd trusted him enough to let those walls come down. He couldn't afford this, couldn't afford to feel anything beyond gratitude and friendship. She was his boss, his lifeline, the person who'd given him stability when he had none. But feelings didn't care about practicality. At work, Lucas tried to maintain normalcy. He focused on his tasks, kept conversations professional, avoided lingering too long in Vivian's office. But he caught himself noticing things he shouldn't. The way she rubbed her neck when she was stressed, the small smile she gave when someone did good work, the coffee mug she used every morning that said "World's Okayest Boss" in faded letters. Marcus noticed, of course. "Man, you've got it bad," he said one afternoon, leaning against Lucas's workstation. Lucas didn't look up from his inventory sheet. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. You've been staring at Moore's office for the past 10 minutes. "I was thinking." "About her?" Lucas finally looked at him. "Don't you have work to do?" Marcus grinned. "Plenty, but this is more interesting." He sobered slightly. "Look, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but you should know people are starting to notice, the way she looks at you, the way you look at her." "There's nothing happening, Marcus." "Maybe not, but there could be. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" Lucas shook his head. "Nothing. I'm doing nothing. She's my boss. It's not appropriate." "Life's short, man. Sometimes appropriate doesn't matter." "It matters when you have a kid depending on you, when you can't risk screwing up the one good thing you've got going." Marcus studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I get that." He pushed off the workstation. "Just don't let fear make all your decisions, all right? Sometimes the scary thing is the right thing." He walked away, leaving Lucas alone with his thoughts. That evening, Lucas picked up Jamie from school and took him to the park. The weather was warm, the sky a brilliant blue. Jamie ran straight for the swings, his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. Lucas sat on a bench and watched him play, his mind still tangled in everything Marcus had said. His phone buzzed, a text from Vivian. Vivian Moore. You free Saturday afternoon? My nephew's got a championship game. Jamie's welcome to come. Lucas stared at the message. He should say no, should maintain distance, should protect the boundaries that were already blurring. Lucas. What time? Vivian Moore. 2:00. I'll pick you both up. Lucas. We'll be ready. He put his phone away and immediately regretted it. What was he doing? This wasn't just friendly anymore. This was something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. Dad, Jamie called from the top of the slide. Watch this. Lucas watched his son slide down, laughing, arms in the air, and he thought about what Marcus had said, about fear, about the scary thing sometimes being the right thing. Maybe he didn't have to have all the answers right now. Maybe it was okay to just see where this went. Saturday arrived bright and clear. Vivian pulled up exactly at 2, wearing jeans and a blazer, sunglasses perched on her head. Jamie scrambled into the back seat, already talking about the game, about the team, about whether they'd have good snacks at the concession stand. Lucas got in the front seat, glancing at Vivian. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for coming. She pulled away from the curb, smooth and practiced. Fair warning, my sister's going to be there. She's a lot. A lot how? Loud, opinionated, asks inappropriate questions. Vivian smiled slightly. You'll see. The baseball field was packed with families, lawn chairs scattered across the grass, coolers stacked by the bleachers. Vivian led them to a section where a woman who looked like a younger, more animated version of her was waving enthusiastically. Viv, over here! Vivian sighed. That's Rachel. Rachel was petite and energetic, with Vivian's sharp eyes but none of her reserve. She pulled Vivian into a hug, then turned to Lucas and Jamie with undisguised curiosity. And who's this? She asked, grinning. This is Lucas. He works with me. And this is his son, Jamie. Works with you? Rachel repeated, eyebrows raised. Right, sure. Vivian shot her a warning look. Behave. I always behave. Rachel crouched down to Jamie's level. You like baseball, kiddo? Jamie nodded enthusiastically. My dad took me to a game last month. It was awesome. Well, you're going to love this. My son's pitching today. He's pretty good. She winked at Lucas. Your dad seems cool. You're lucky. Jamie beamed. He's the best. Lucas felt his chest tighten. He caught Vivian's eye and she smiled, small, private, just for him. They settled into the bleachers. Rachel kept up a running commentary on every play, alternating between cheering loudly and critiquing the umpire's calls. Jamie was completely absorbed, asking questions, clapping when Vivian's nephew struck someone out. At one point, Rachel leaned over to Lucas. So, you and my sister, what's the story? Lucas blinked. There's no story. We're friends. Uh-huh. And I'm the Queen of England. She grinned. Look, I've known Vivian my whole life. She doesn't bring people to family stuff. Ever. So either you're special or she's finally losing her mind. I'm betting on special. Lucas didn't know what to say to that. Rachel patted his shoulder. Don't overthink it, Lucas. Just be good to her. She deserves that. The game ended with Vivian's nephew's team winning by 2 runs. The kid ran over, sweaty and grinning, and Vivian hugged him with a warmth Lucas rarely saw from her at work. You were amazing, she told him. Thanks, Aunt Viv. You gonna take me for ice cream? Absolutely. She looked at Lucas and Jamie. You two want to come? Jamie's eyes lit up. Can we, Dad? Lucas nodded. Yeah, we can. They ended up at a small ice cream shop downtown, the kind with homemade flavors and waffle cones. Jamie and Vivian's nephew, whose name was Tyler, sat at one table, comparing favorite superheroes. Rachel sat with Vivian and Lucas at another, her cone dripping chocolate onto her napkin. So Lucas, Rachel said, what do you do when you're not working? Mostly just hang out with Jamie. We go to the park, watch movies, build Lego sets, normal stuff. Single dad life, Rachel said, nodding. Respect. That's not easy. It's worth it. I bet. She glanced at Vivian. My sister here doesn't talk about work much, but she mentioned you a few times. Said you're good at what you do. Vivian looked mildly horrified. Rachel, what? I'm just saying. Rachel grinned. She also said you're one of the only people who doesn't kiss her ass, which apparently is refreshing. Lucas laughed despite himself. I try to be honest. That's rare. Most people are terrified of her. I'm not terrified, Lucas said, looking at Vivian. Respectful, yeah, but not terrified. Vivian met his gaze, something soft in her expression. Good. Terror's overrated. Rachel watched them for a moment, then smiled into her ice cream. Yeah, definitely special. After they dropped Rachel and Tyler off, Vivian drove Lucas and Jamie home. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jamie was half asleep in the back seat, his head resting against the window. Your sister's great, Lucas said quietly. She's a menace. But yeah, she is. She really loves you. Vivian smiled. I know. I'm lucky to have her. She paused. She's the only family I've got left, really. Our parents passed a few years ago, so it's just us and Tyler. I'm sorry about your parents. Thanks. It was hard. Still is sometimes. She glanced at him. But having Rachel helps. Having people helps. Lucas nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. When they reached his building, Lucas gently woke Jamie and helped him out of the car. Vivian rolled down the window. Thanks for today, Lucas said. We had a really good time. Me too. It was nice having you there. Lucas hesitated, then leaned down slightly. Vivian, can I ask you something? Sure. What are we doing? He gestured between them. I know we're friends, but sometimes it feels like more. And I don't know if I'm reading into things or if you're not, Vivian said quietly. She looked at him, her expression open and honest. You're not reading into anything. I feel it too. Lucas's heart hammered. Okay, so what do we do about it? I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot. And honestly, Lucas, I'm scared. I'm your boss. There are rules, complications. I don't want to risk your job or make things weird or... I'm scared too, Lucas interrupted. Terrified, actually. But I also think maybe being scared isn't a good enough reason to not try. Vivian stared at him. Then, slowly, she smiled. Marcus said something to you, didn't he? Lucas laughed. How did you know? He's been giving me pointed looks all week. Very subtle, that one. About as subtle as a freight train. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Vivian spoke, her voice careful. I don't want to rush this. I don't want to mess it up. Neither do I. So maybe we just take it slow. See where it goes. No pressure. No expectations. Lucas nodded. I can do that. Good. She reached out and squeezed his hand, her fingers warm against his. Get some sleep, Lucas. You too, Vivian. He stepped back and she drove away. Lucas watched her taillights disappear, then looked down at Jamie, who was definitely not as asleep as he'd pretended to be. You like her, don't you? Jamie asked, grinning. Lucas sighed. Yeah, buddy, I do. She's cool, and she makes you smile. She does. Then you should keep hanging out with her. Lucas ruffled his son's hair. We'll see, Jamie, we'll see. The following week at work felt different. Not in any obvious way. Vivian still ran the floor with precision. Lucas still did his job efficiently. But there was an awareness between them now, a charge in the air whenever they were in the same room. Small moments became significant. The way their hands brushed when she handed him paperwork. The way she smiled when he made a sarcastic comment during a meeting. The way he caught her watching him from across the warehouse, and instead of looking away, she held his gaze. It was exhilarating and nerve-wracking in equal measure. On Wednesday, corporate sent down new safety protocols that required additional training. Vivian assigned Lucas to help run the sessions, working alongside her to get the entire staff certified within 2 weeks. They spent hours in the training room, going through PowerPoint presentations and safety demonstrations. Lucas discovered Vivian had a dry sense of humor that only came out when she was comfortable. She discovered Lucas could diffuse tense moments with perfectly timed jokes. You're good at this. Vivian said during a break as they reviewed the next module. At what? Making people laugh while explaining fire extinguisher types? At connecting with people, making them feel heard. She looked at him seriously. That's a rare skill, Lucas. You should know that. I just treat people like people. Exactly. That's the skill. Lucas studied her. You do the same thing, you know. You just hide it better. I have to. It's part of the job. It doesn't have to be. You could let people see more of who you actually are. Vivian was quiet for a moment. I'm not sure I remember who that is anymore. I've been the boss for so long, I think I forgot how to be anything else. That's not true. I've seen you, with Jamie, with Tyler and Rachel. You're funny and kind and… He stopped himself, realizing he was about to say too much. And what? Vivian asked softly. Real. You're real when you're not trying to be in control. Something shifted in her expression. Vulnerability mixed with something warmer. No one's ever said that to me before. Then no one's been paying attention. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Then the door opened and Marcus stuck his head in. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got a situation on the dock. Shipment came in damaged. Vivian stood immediately, professionalism sliding back into place. Show me. She followed Marcus out, but paused at the door and looked back at Lucas. Thank you for what you said. Then she was gone, leaving Lucas alone with the echo of her words. That evening, Lucas's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. Mr. Hale? This is St. Catherine's Hospital. Your son was brought in about 20 minutes ago. Lucas's blood turned to ice. What? Is he okay? He's stable. He fell during soccer practice at the after-school program. Possible concussion. We'd like you to come in. Lucas was already grabbing his keys. I'm on my way. He called Vivian as he ran to his car. She answered on the second ring. Lucas, what's wrong? It's Jamie. He's at the hospital. I have to go. Which hospital? St. Catherine's. I'll meet you there. Vivian, you don't have to… I'm already in my car. Don't argue. She hung up. Lucas drove faster than he should have, his mind spiraling through worst-case scenarios. Concussions could be serious. Brain injuries, swelling. What if Jamie wasn't really stable? What if they were downplaying it? He made it to the hospital in 15 minutes and ran inside, not bothering to park properly. The nurse at the ER desk directed him to room 7. Lucas burst through the curtain to find Jamie sitting on a gurney, holding an ice pack to his head, looking sheepish. Hey, Dad? Lucas's knees nearly gave out in relief. Are you okay? I'm fine. Just bumped my head. The doctor, a young woman with kind eyes, looked up from her chart. Mr. Hale? I'm Dr. Patel. Jamie's doing well. He has a mild concussion, but his neurological signs are all normal. We'll keep him for observation for a few hours, but he should be fine to go home tonight. Lucas sank into the chair beside the bed, his hands shaking. What happened? Jamie winced. I tried to do a bicycle kick during scrimmage. Missed the ball. Hit the ground instead. A bicycle kick? Jamie, you don't even know how to do a bicycle kick. I do now. Well, sort of, except for the landing part. Despite everything, Lucas laughed. You're grounded. For getting hurt? For giving me a heart attack. There was a knock on the door frame. Lucas turned to see Vivian standing there, slightly out of breath, concern etched on her face. How is he? She asked. Mild concussion. He's okay. Lucas stood. You didn't have to come. Yes, I did. Vivian walked over to the bed and looked at Jamie. You scared us, kiddo. Sorry, Miss Moore, I didn't mean to. I know. Just be more careful next time, all right? Jamie nodded, then looked between Vivian and Lucas with a sly grin. You both came to check on me. Of course we did, Lucas said. Together. Lucas felt his face heat. Jamie, it's okay, Dad. I think it's cool. He smiled at Vivian. You make him happy. Vivian's expression softened. He makes me happy too. The honesty in her voice made Lucas's chest tighten. Jamie just nodded, satisfied, and leaned back against his pillow. Dr. Patel returned with discharge instructions. Jamie would need to rest, avoid screens, no physical activity for at least a week. Lucas signed the paperwork, and they were cleared to leave. In the parking lot, Vivian walked them to Lucas's car. The night air was cool, the sky dark and starless. "Thank you for coming," Lucas said quietly. "You didn't have to, but I'm glad you did." "Where else would I be?" Vivian looked at Jamie, who was already half asleep in the back seat. "He's a tough kid. Takes after his mom. She was stubborn as hell." It was the first time Lucas had mentioned Jamie's mother voluntarily. Vivian didn't push, just waited. "She died when Jamie was 2, Lucas continued, his voice low. "Car accident, drunk driver. 1 minute we were a family, the next—" He trailed off, swallowing hard. "I've been doing this alone ever since." "I'm sorry," Vivian said. "That's unimaginable." "It was. Still is sometimes. But Jamie's the reason I kept going, the reason I keep showing up." Vivian reached out and took his hand. The gesture was simple, but it meant everything. "You're a good father, Lucas. And you're not alone anymore." He looked at her, at the sincerity in her eyes, and felt something break open inside him. All the walls he'd built, all the defenses he'd maintained, they crumbled. "I care about you," he said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "I know this is complicated. I know there are 100 reasons why we shouldn't do this. But I care about you, Vivian. A lot." Vivian stepped closer, her hand tightening around his. "I care about you too. More than I probably should. More than I know what to do with." "So what do we do?" She smiled, small and uncertain and real. "I guess we figure it out. Together." Lucas nodded. "Together." They stood there for a moment longer, the hospital lights casting long shadows across the asphalt. Then Vivian leaned up and kissed his cheek, brief and gentle. "Get him home," she said softly. "Call me if you need anything." "I will." He watched her walk to her car, then got in his own and started the engine. Jamie stirred in the back seat. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy." "I like her." Lucas smiled. "Me too, Jamie. Me too." The days following Jamie's concussion settled into a careful rhythm. Lucas took time off work to stay home with his son, monitoring him for symptoms, making sure he rested. Vivian called every evening to check in, her voice a steady presence that made the apartment feel less empty. They talked about everything and nothing: Jamie's recovery, work drama, the ridiculous reality show Vivian had gotten addicted to and refused to admit she loved. "I'm not saying the show is good," Vivian said one night, her tone defensive. "I'm saying it's entertaining. There's a difference." Lucas laughed, phone pressed to his ear as he washed dishes. "You've watched 12 episodes in 3 days. That's not casual viewing." "I had it on in the background while I worked." "Sure you did." "I hate you a little bit right now." "No, you don't." There was a pause, then Vivian's voice came softer. "No, I don't." Lucas felt warmth spread through his chest. These conversations had become the highlight of his day, the moment he looked forward to after Jamie went to sleep. They'd crossed some invisible line at the hospital, acknowledged what was building between them, and now neither seemed willing to pretend anymore. "How's Jamie doing?" Vivian asked. "Good. Headache's almost gone. He's complaining about the screen restriction, which the doctor says is actually a good sign." "That's great news." "Yeah." Lucas dried his hands on a towel, staring out the window at the city lights. "Vivian, can I ask you something?" "Always." "When this is over, when Jamie's cleared and I'm back at work, what happens with us?" The question hung in the air. Lucas could hear her breathing, could imagine her sitting in her living room, considering her words carefully, the way she always did. "I don't know," she finally said. "I've been thinking about it a lot. The company has policies about relationships between managers and employees. It's not forbidden, but it has to be disclosed. There would be paperwork, HR meetings, people would talk." "I don't care about people talking." "I know, but I care about protecting you. If anyone thought I was showing you favoritism, it could hurt your career. The promotion I mentioned, people might say you only got it because of our relationship." Lucas hadn't thought of that. "So what are you saying? We can't do this." "No. I'm saying we have to be smart about it, careful." She paused. "Lucas, I want this. I want you. But I also want to make sure we do it right." "Okay." So we wait until the promotion goes through. Keep things professional at work. Take it slow. Exactly. Lucas smiled despite the frustration. You know, most people would just see where things go and deal with consequences later. We're not most people. No, we're really not. They talked for another hour before finally hanging up. Lucas went to check on Jamie one last time before bed. His son was sleeping peacefully, the rise and fall of his chest steady and reassuring. Lucas stood in the doorway watching him, thinking about how much had changed in just a few months. He'd gone from barely surviving to actually building something. A career with potential, friendships. And now, maybe, something more with someone who saw him, really saw him, in ways no one had since Jamie's mother died. It felt fragile, precious, worth protecting. Lucas returned to work the following Monday. The warehouse felt different somehow, or maybe he was the one who'd changed. People greeted him warmly, asked about Jamie, expressed genuine relief that he was okay. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Glad you're back, man. Place wasn't the same without you." Vivian was in a meeting when Lucas arrived, so he went straight to his station and dove into the backlog of tasks that had accumulated during his absence. It felt good to work, to be useful, to focus on something other than his own spiraling thoughts. Around mid-morning, Vivian appeared at his workstation. She looked professional and put together in dark slacks and a crisp white blouse, her hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed something on her tablet. "Hail! Welcome back." Lucas looked up, noting the formal tone, the careful distance. "Thanks. Good to be back." "Jamie's fully recovered?" "Doctor cleared him Friday. He's back at school, already planning his next death-defying stunt." Vivian's mouth twitched. Almost a smile, but not quite. "Kids are resilient." Terrifyingly so. She glanced around, checking who was within earshot, then lowered her voice slightly. "I need you to review the new inventory system. Corporate rolled out updates over the weekend. I'd like your input before we implement floor-wide." "Sure. When do you need it by?" "End of week. Come by my office later and I'll walk you through the details." "Will do." She nodded and walked away, every inch the efficient manager. But Lucas caught the way her fingers had gripped the tablet a little tighter when she spoke to him, the slight hesitation before she left. The small tells that said she was working just as hard as he was to maintain professional distance. It was going to be a long few weeks. The inventory system review gave them a legitimate reason to spend time together. Lucas found himself in Vivian's office several times that week. The door open. Both of them maintaining careful space while discussing workflow optimization and data management protocols. But sometimes their hands would brush when reaching for the same document. Sometimes their eyes would meet and hold for a beat too long. Sometimes Vivian would laugh at something Lucas said, and the sound would linger in the air between them like a promise. "This section here," Lucas said, pointing to a spreadsheet on Vivian's computer. "The categorization is too broad. We should break it down by product type and vendor to track shortages more efficiently." Vivian leaned closer, studying the screen. Lucas was acutely aware of her proximity, the faint scent of her perfume, the way a strand of hair had escaped her ponytail and curled against her neck. "You're right," she said. "That's actually brilliant. How did I miss that?" "Fresh eyes. You've been staring at the system for weeks." She turned her head slightly, and suddenly they were very close. Lucas could see the flecks of amber in her brown eyes, the tiny scar above her left eyebrow that he'd never noticed before. Vivian's breath caught. "Lucas!" A knock on the door broke the moment. Marcus stood in the doorway, completely oblivious to what he'd interrupted. "Hey boss, got a minute? We've got a question about the shipping schedule." Vivian straightened immediately, her professional mask sliding back into place. "Of course. Come in." Lucas took the opportunity to gather his notes and stand. "I'll finish the analysis and get you a full report by Thursday." "Perfect. Thank you, Hale." He left the office, his heart still racing, and went back to work trying not to think about how close they'd been, how easy it would have been to close that distance. This was going to be harder than he'd thought. That weekend, Lucas took Jamie to the Children's Museum downtown. They spent hours exploring exhibits, building structures with giant foam blocks, experimenting with physics demonstrations, watching Jamie's face light up at the planetarium show. It was exactly what they both needed. On the way home, Jamie was quiet, staring out the bus window. "You okay, buddy?" Lucas asked. "Yeah, I was just thinking." "About what?" "Do you think Mom would be proud of us? Of how we're doing?" Lucas's throat tightened. They didn't talk about Jamie's mother often. The memories were painful, and Jamie had been so young when she died. But sometimes, like now, the loss surfaced unexpectedly. "I think she'd be incredibly proud of you," Lucas said carefully. "You're smart and kind and brave. Everything she wanted you to be." "What about you? Do you think she'd be proud of you too?" Lucas considered the question. Would Sarah be proud? He'd kept their son safe, healthy, loved. He'd worked himself to exhaustion to give Jamie a stable life, but he'd also been lonely, had stopped believing he deserved happiness beyond basic survival. "I think she'd want me to be happy," Lucas said quietly. "Really happy. Not just okay." Jamie looked at him seriously. "Are you happy now?" "Yeah, buddy, I think I am, or at least I'm getting there." "Because of Ms. Moore?" Lucas shouldn't have been surprised his son had picked up on this. "She's part of it, yeah. But mostly because I stopped being afraid to want more." Jamie nodded, processing this. Then he said, "I like when you smile more. You've been smiling a lot lately." Lucas pulled his son close, kissing the top of his head. "That's because I've got a pretty great kid. And a pretty great girlfriend." "She's not my girlfriend yet." "But she will be." Lucas laughed. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm 8. I know stuff." Monday morning brought unexpected news. Vivian called an emergency staff meeting, her expression tense. Lucas felt dread pool in his stomach. Not more layoffs. They couldn't handle more cuts, but when Vivian spoke, her words were different than he'd expected. "Corporate has announced a major expansion initiative. We're adding a second shift and increasing capacity by 40%. This facility has been selected as the pilot program for the new operational model." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lucas exchanged glances with Marcus, who looked equally stunned. "What this means," Vivian continued, "is significant hiring, new positions, advancement opportunities for existing staff. Over the next month, I'll be working with HR to identify candidates for supervisory and management roles." She let that sink in, then continued. "I know the layoffs were hard. I know many of you felt uncertain about your futures here. This expansion is our chance to rebuild, to grow, to show corporate what this team is capable of." After the meeting dispersed, Lucas hung back. Vivian was gathering her notes, and when she looked up and saw him, something in her expression shifted. Relief, maybe. Or hope. "That's incredible news," Lucas said. "It is. I found out Friday, but had to wait for corporate approval to announce." She moved closer, lowering her voice. "Lucas, one of those management positions. It's yours if you want it. Floor supervisor, salary, benefits, the works." Lucas stared at her. "Vivian, I can't accept a promotion right now. People will think you earned it because you did. I've been building the case for months, documenting your performance, your leadership during the safety training, your process improvements. This has nothing to do with us." "But it looks like it does." "Only if you let it." She held his gaze. "Lucas, you deserve this. Don't let fear of what people might think stop you from taking an opportunity you've earned." He wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that this was legitimate, that he'd actually accomplished enough to warrant promotion, but years of being invisible, of being overlooked, made it hard. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "Of course, but don't think too long. I need your answer by end of week." The promotion consumed Lucas's thoughts for the next few days. He ran numbers, calculated what the salary increase would mean, a better apartment, savings, maybe even a college fund for Jamie, security in ways he'd only dreamed about. But he also worried about perception, about whether he was really ready, about whether accepting would complicate things with Vivian even further. On Wednesday evening, his phone rang. Rachel, Vivian's sister. "Rachel, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I got your number from Vivian's phone while she was in the bathroom. Don't tell her." Lucas smiled despite his confusion. "Okay, what's up?" "I heard about the promotion offer. Vivian mentioned it." "She told you about that?" "She tells me everything. Well, almost everything. Anyway, I'm calling because I think you're going to turn it down for stupid reasons, and I wanted to talk you out of it. I haven't decided anything yet. But you're leaning toward no. I can hear it in your voice. Rachel's tone softened. Lucas, my sister doesn't offer things she doesn't mean. If she says you earned this, you earned it. She's the most aggressively fair person I know, sometimes to her own detriment. I just don't want people thinking she's playing favorites. People will think whatever they want, regardless of what you do. You can't control that. What you can control is whether you take an opportunity that will change your and Jamie's life. She paused. Also, between you and me, Vivian needs you, not as an employee, as a partner, someone who challenges her, supports her, sees her as a person, and not just a boss. You turning down this promotion doesn't protect anyone. It just hurts both of you. Lucas was quiet, absorbing her words. Think about it, Rachel said. And Lucas, don't let the past make your decisions for you. You're allowed to have good things happen. After they hung up, Lucas sat on his couch staring at nothing. Jamie was at the kitchen table doing homework, occasionally asking for help with math problems. Normal, everyday life. The kind of life Lucas had been grateful just to maintain. But maybe Rachel was right. Maybe he was allowed to want more than just maintenance. Maybe he was allowed to actually thrive. Thursday morning, Lucas walked into Vivian's office and closed the door. She looked up from her computer, eyebrows raised. Hale? I'll take the promotion. Relief washed over her face. Yeah? Yeah, you're right. I earned it, and I'm tired of being afraid to believe that. Vivian stood, coming around her desk. For a moment, they just looked at each other, the weight of the decision settling between them. This is going to change things, she said quietly. I know. We'll need to disclose our relationship to HR, fill out the paperwork, make it official. Lucas's heart skipped. Our relationship? If we're going to do this, we do it right. No hiding, no secrets. She stepped closer. I want to be with you, Lucas, really be with you. Not just stolen moments and late-night phone calls, but we have to be smart about it. Okay, so we tell HR, we follow protocol. We keep things professional at work. Exactly. And outside of work? Vivian smiled, a real smile, warm and unguarded. Outside of work, we figure out what this is, together. Lucas reached out and took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. The gesture felt monumental, a choice made, a line crossed. I'd like that, he said. Good. Because I'm terrible at dating and I'm probably going to need a lot of patience. I've got plenty of patience, liar, but I appreciate the sentiment. They stood there for another moment, hands joined, the future suddenly feeling less terrifying and more like possibility. Then Vivian's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. Corporate conference call in 5 minutes. Back to work then. Back to work. But as Lucas turned to leave, Vivian called after him. Lucas? He looked back. Thank you for taking a chance on this. On us. Thank you for seeing me, he said simply. The HR meeting happened the following week. Lucas and Vivian sat across from a cheerful woman named Patricia who walked them through disclosure forms, explained workplace conduct policies, and assured them that consensual relationships between employees at different levels were permitted as long as proper protocols were followed. Any questions? Patricia asked, handing them final copies of the signed paperwork. Lucas glanced at Vivian, who shook her head. We're good, Vivian said. Excellent. Congratulations on the promotion, Lucas, and congratulations to both of you. Patricia smiled warmly. It's actually nice to process one of these for a change. Usually I'm dealing with conflict resolution, not people genuinely trying to do the right thing. After they left HR, Lucas and Vivian walked to the parking lot together. It was late afternoon, the sun casting long shadows across the asphalt. That wasn't as bad as I thought, Lucas said. Patricia's great. Very pragmatic. So it's official now. We're disclosed. Above board. We are. Vivian stopped beside her car, turning to face him. Which means I can officially ask if you'd like to have dinner with me, as an actual date, not just two colleagues grabbing food. Lucas grinned. I'd love to. When? Saturday? I'll pick you up at 7. Wear something nice. I'll break out my second best pair of jeans. Vivian laughed. Perfect. Saturday evening arrived with Lucas experiencing a level of nervousness he hadn't felt in years. He stood in front of his closet trying to decide what something nice meant. His wardrobe consisted primarily of work clothes and casual basics. Nothing screamed, first real date with the woman you're falling for. Jamie sat on his bed, offering commentary. The blue shirt, his son said decisively. You sure? Yeah, it makes your eyes look nice. Mom used to say that. Lucas's chest tightened. He pulled out the blue button-down, one Sarah had bought him years ago for a friend's wedding. He'd barely worn it since. You're right, he said softly. Thanks, buddy. Jamie hopped off the bed and hugged him. Have fun, Dad. Don't be nervous. I'm not nervous. You're totally nervous? But that's okay. Miss Moore probably is too. Lucas looked down at his son, amazed once again by this kid's wisdom. When did you get so smart? I told you, I'm 8. Mrs. Alvarez came up at 6:30 to stay with Jamie. Lucas gave his son detailed instructions about bedtime, screen limits, and emergency contacts, all of which Jamie recited back with exaggerated patience. Dad, I know. Go have fun. At exactly 7, there was a knock on the door. Lucas opened it to find Vivian standing in the hallway wearing a deep green dress that made her eyes luminous. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked beautiful and slightly nervous. Hi, she said. Hiya, you look amazing. Thanks, so do you. She glanced past him. Hey, Jamie. Jamie waved from the couch. Have a good time, Miss Moore. Make sure my dad doesn't talk about work the whole time. Vivian laughed. I'll do my best. The restaurant Vivian chose was quiet and elegant, the kind of place Lucas had never imagined himself going. Soft lighting, cloth napkins, a wine list that looked like a novel. He felt out of place until Vivian reached across the table and took his hand. Relax, she said. It's just dinner. Just dinner at a place where the cheapest entree costs more than I usually spend on groceries. I'm paying, so order whatever you want and stop worrying. Lucas squeezed her hand. Okay, but next time I'm picking the place. Deal. They talked through dinner, about Jamie, about Vivian's nephew's upcoming college visits, about books they'd read and movies they'd loved. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and comfortable silences. Lucas realized he felt more himself with Vivian than he had with anyone in years. Over dessert, a chocolate creation that probably violated several laws of physics, Vivian grew more serious. Can I tell you something? She asked. Always. I didn't think this was possible. Finding someone who sees me, understands me, doesn't expect me to be anything other than myself. She looked down at her plate. I've been alone for a long time, Lucas. By choice, mostly. It felt safer than risking being hurt again. What changed? You did. You showed up in my life, exhausted and soaked from the rain, and you were so genuine, so real, that I couldn't look away. And then you kept showing up, being honest, being kind, not wanting anything from me except maybe a ride home. Lucas's throat tightened. I feel the same way. About you. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen as more than just a father, or a worker, or someone barely holding it together. You're so much more than that. So are you. They sat in the warmth of that acknowledgement, the weight of their shared loneliness, and the relief of finally not being alone. After dinner, Vivian drove them to a park overlooking the river. They walked along the path, the city lights reflected in the dark water, a cool breeze rustling through the trees. Eventually, they found a bench and sat down, close enough that their shoulders touched. This is nice, Lucas said. It is. Vivian leaned her head against his shoulder. I'm glad we're doing this. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the water flow past, the night settling around them. Lucas thought about how far he'd come, from that rain-soaked parking lot to this moment sitting beside a woman who'd changed everything without even trying. Lucas? Vivian's voice was quiet. Yeah? I'm falling for you. I thought you should know. His heart expanded in his chest, warmth spreading through every part of him. I'm falling for you too. She lifted her head and looked at him, her eyes searching his face. Then, slowly, carefully, She leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle and sweet and perfect, everything a first kiss should be. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "That was worth waiting for," Lucas said. "It really was." They kissed again, longer this time, and Lucas felt the last of his carefully constructed walls crumble completely. This was real. This was happening, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he wasn't afraid of it. The following months unfolded with a kind of grace Lucas hadn't known was possible. His promotion became official in early spring, complete with a new office, small but his own, and responsibilities that challenged him in ways he'd craved without realizing it. He supervised a team of 12, implemented efficiency improvements that saved the company thousands, and discovered he was genuinely good at leadership when given the chance. More importantly, he discovered what it felt like to build a life instead of just surviving one. Vivian remained his boss in title, but their dynamic had shifted into something more balanced. At work, they maintained professionalism. No public displays of affection, no favoritism, nothing that would undermine either of their positions. But everyone knew. The disclosure had made its way through the workplace grapevine with surprising speed, and while there had been some initial gossip, it died down quickly when people saw that nothing had actually changed in how Vivian ran operations. Marcus had cornered Lucas in the break room the week after the announcement. "So you and Moore, huh?" he'd said, grinning widely. "Yeah, me and Moore. I knew it. Called it months ago." "You're very perceptive, Marcus." "Damn right I am." He'd clapped Lucas on the shoulder. "Good for you, man. Seriously, you both deserve to be happy." "Thanks. Just don't screw it up. She's scary when she's mad." Lucas had laughed. "Trust me, I know." Outside of work, Lucas and Vivian navigated the complexities of actually dating while juggling careers and a child. They stole time when they could, dinners after Jamie's bedtime, weekend afternoons at museums or parks, quiet evenings at Vivian's house where they'd cook together and talk for hours. Lucas introduced her properly to Jamie's world, and Vivian showed up for school events and soccer games with the same dedication she brought to everything else. Jamie adored her. He'd stopped calling her Ms. Moore and started calling her Vivian, though occasionally he'd slip and call her Dad's girlfriend, with a grin that suggested he knew exactly how that flustered his father. One Saturday in June, Vivian suggested they spend the day at the beach. She picked them up early, her car loaded with towels, sunscreen, and a cooler packed with sandwiches. Jamie was vibrating with excitement in the back seat, chattering about sandcastles and whether they'd see any crabs. The beach was crowded but beautiful, the ocean stretching endlessly under a clear blue sky. Jamie ran straight for the water, Lucas chasing after him with warnings about not going too deep. Vivian set up their spot, umbrella, blankets, beach chairs, with military precision. "You're very organized," Lucas said, dropping down beside her. "Someone has to be. You packed one towel for both of you." "We could have shared." "You're lucky I love you." The words hung in the air. Vivian's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't meant to say them out loud. Lucas felt his heart stutter, then race. "You love me?" he asked quietly. Vivian met his gaze, vulnerable but certain. "Yeah, I do. I know it's only been a few months, and maybe it's too soon to say it, but—" Lucas kissed her, cutting off her nervous rambling. When they pulled apart, he was smiling. "I love you too," he said. "Have for a while now. Just didn't know if it was too soon to say." "Apparently we're both terrible at timing." "Apparently." He kissed her again, softer this time. "But I mean it. I love you, Vivian." "I love you too." Jamie's voice carried over from the water. "Dad, Vivian, come see this shell I found." They spent the day building sandcastles, swimming in the waves, and eating sandy sandwiches that somehow tasted perfect. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they sat together on the blanket, Jamie between them, watching the ocean. "This is the best day ever," Jamie announced. Lucas wrapped an arm around his son. "Yeah, buddy, it really is." Vivian leaned against Lucas's shoulder, her hand finding his. They sat there as the sky darkened, the stars beginning to emerge, and Lucas felt a completeness he'd thought he'd lost forever when Sarah died. Different than what he'd had before, but no less real, no less precious. The expansion project at the warehouse kicked into high gear in July. The second shift launched, new equipment arrived, and Lucas found himself working longer hours to manage the transition. It was exhausting, but exhilarating. He was building something, creating systems that would outlast his involvement, mentoring new supervisors the way Vivian had mentored him. One evening, after a particularly brutal 14-hour day, Lucas found Vivian still in her office at 9 o'clock, staring at spreadsheets with bleary eyes. He knocked on the open door. "You planning to sleep here?" She looked up, startled. "What time is it?" "Too late." "Come on, I'm driving you home." "I have so much to finish, and it'll still be here tomorrow. Vivian, you're exhausted. You need rest." She wanted to argue. He could see it in her face, but finally she nodded. "Okay, let me just save these files." They drove in comfortable silence, Vivian's head resting against the window. Lucas glanced over at her, noticing the dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders even in rest. "You're pushing too hard," he said gently. "Says the man who worked 14 hours today." "Yeah, but I actually ate lunch. You didn't." "How do you know that?" "Because I checked on you at noon, and you were in the same position as when I left you at 8, surrounded by the same paperwork." Vivian sighed. "I'm trying to prove the expansion was worth it. Corporate is watching everything, analyzing every metric. If this fails, it won't fail. You've built something incredible, but you can't sustain this pace forever." "I know, She trailed off, staring out the window. "I spent so long being alone, being in control of everything, that it's hard to let go, to trust that things will work even if I'm not micromanaging every detail." Lucas reached over and took her hand. "You don't have to do everything alone anymore. You have a whole team of supervisors now, good ones, who know what they're doing. Let us help carry the weight." "I'm working on it." "I know you are, and you're doing great. But please, take care of yourself. For me. For us." She squeezed his hand. "Okay, I'll try." When they reached Vivian's house, Lucas walked her to the door. She unlocked it, then turned to him. "Come in?" she asked. "Just for a bit?" Lucas hesitated. "I should get back to Jamie. Mrs. Alvarez is probably asleep on your couch watching her telenovelas. Come in, please. I don't want to be alone right now." He followed her inside. Vivian kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto the couch, patting the space beside her. Lucas sat down, and she immediately curled against him, her head on his chest. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for caring, for seeing when I need help, even when I won't ask for it. Always." They sat there in the dim light of her living room, Lucas's fingers running through her hair, both of them finally still after the chaos of the day. Eventually, Vivian fell asleep, her breathing evening out, her body relaxing against his. Lucas stayed, not wanting to disturb her, content to just be there. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Alvarez. "Jamie's asleep." "I'm fine here. Take your time." Lucas smiled and sent back a thank you, then settled in more comfortably. He thought about how far they'd both come. Two people who'd been so alone, so convinced they had to carry everything themselves, learning to lean on each other, learning to trust. August brought Jamie's 9th birthday. Lucas had been planning for weeks, coordinating with Vivian and Rachel to throw a proper party, the kind with a rented bounce house and way too much cake and a dozen screaming kids running around the park. Jamie had been skeptical when Lucas first proposed the idea. "Dad, you don't have to do all that. We usually just get pizza and watch movies." "I know, but this year I want to do something special. You've been through a lot lately, and you've been so brave and strong. You deserve a real celebration." "Can I invite my whole class?" Lucas had winced internally at the logistics, but nodded. "Sure, buddy. Invite whoever you want." The party was controlled chaos. 23 kids showed up, hopped up on sugar and excitement, bouncing and running and playing games that Rachel had organized with surprising competence. Vivian managed the food table, keeping everything stocked and coordinating pizza deliveries with the efficiency of a military operation. Lucas stood back at one point, watching his son laugh with his friends, watching Vivian help a small girl who'd scraped her knee, watching Rachel chase down a kid who'd decided the parking lot looked fun to explore. This makeshift family they'd built, it worked. Imperfect and chaotic and absolutely perfect. Marcus showed up uninvited, bringing his own kids and a massive present wrapped in Superman paper. Heard there was a party, he said, grinning. Thought we'd crash. You're always welcome, Lucas said, meaning it. Look at you, man. Throwing big parties, dating the boss, living your best life. Marcus clapped him on the back. I'm proud of you. Thanks, Marcus, for everything. For being a friend when I needed one. That's what we do, right? Show up for each other. As the sun began to set and parents came to collect their exhausted, sugar-crashed children, Jamie ran over to Lucas and hugged him fiercely. Best birthday ever, Dad. Yeah? Yeah, thank you. For everything. Lucas held his son tight, blinking back unexpected tears. You're welcome, buddy. I love you. Love you too. Vivian approached as Jamie ran off to say goodbye to his remaining friends. She slipped her hand into Lucas's. You did good, she said. We did good. Couldn't have pulled this off without you. That's what partners do. Lucas looked at her, at this woman who'd appeared in his life during a rainstorm and changed everything. Move in with us. Vivian's eyes widened. What? Move in with us. You're at the apartment half the time anyway, and Jamie asks almost daily when you're coming over. We could find a bigger place, something with room for all of us. Make it official. Lucas, that's a huge step. I know. And if you're not ready, that's okay. But I'm ready. I want to build a life with you, Vivian. A real life. Not just stolen moments between work shifts. Vivian was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching his face. Then she smiled, that beautiful, unguarded smile he'd fallen in love with. Yeah, okay, let's do it. Yeah? Yeah, let's find a place, build something together. Lucas kissed her right there in the middle of the park, surrounded by deflating bounce houses and scattered birthday decorations, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. They found an apartment in September, a 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood with good schools and a small yard where Jamie could play. Moving day was orchestrated chaos, with Marcus and his crew showing up to help haul furniture, Rachel directing traffic with a clipboard, and Jamie supervising from the safety of the couch. By evening, they were surrounded by boxes but officially living together. Lucas ordered Chinese food, and they ate straight from the containers, sitting on the floor of their new living room. This is really happening, Vivian said, looking around at the organized chaos. This is really happening, Lucas confirmed. Jamie, sprawled between them with fried rice, looked up. Does this mean Vivian's part of our family now? Lucas glanced at Vivian, who nodded. Yeah, buddy, she is. Cool. Can I have her last name too? Vivian choked on her low mane. What? Well, if we're a family, shouldn't we all have the same last name, or is that not how it works? Lucas was stunned into silence. Vivian set down her food, her expression soft. Jamie, that's really sweet. But that's a big decision. We'd need to talk about it. All of us. Okay, but I think it would be cool being Jamie Hale Moore, or Moore Hale. Either way. After Jamie went to bed in his new room, spent but happy, Lucas and Vivian sat together on their balcony, looking out over the neighborhood. He wants us to be a real family, Vivian said quietly. We are a real family. You know what I mean. Official. Legal. Lucas turned to her. Would that be so bad? No, it would be everything. She looked at him. Is that what you want? Eventually, yeah. I'm not saying we rush into anything, but yes, Vivian. I want that. All of it. Marriage, family, the whole complicated, messy, beautiful thing. Vivian's eyes glistened. I never thought I'd want that again. After my last relationship ended, I convinced myself I was better off alone. But then you showed up, soaking wet and awkward, and you completely dismantled every defense I'd built. Sorry about that. Don't be. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. They sat in comfortable silence, the night air cool against their skin, the sounds of their new neighborhood settling around them. Lucas? Vivian said after a while. Yeah? Thank you for being patient with me, for seeing past all my walls, for making me believe I deserved this. You've always deserved it. You just needed someone to remind you. So did you. He pulled her close, and they sat there watching the stars emerge, two people who'd spent so long alone finally understanding what it meant to be home. The warehouse expansion proved to be a massive success. By November, productivity was up 40%, employee satisfaction scores had improved dramatically, and corporate was already talking about rolling out the model to other facilities. Vivian was offered a regional director position, more money, more responsibility, more recognition for everything she'd built. She turned it down. "I don't want to travel constantly," she explained to Lucas that night over dinner. "I don't want to sacrifice the life we're building for a title. I'm happy where I am, happy with what I have." "You're sure?" "Completely. I spent years chasing promotions, thinking that was what success looked like. But success is this: coming home to you and Jamie, having dinner together, building something that matters beyond quarterly reports." Lucas reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm proud of you for knowing what you want. I learned from the best." They got engaged on a random Tuesday in December. There was no elaborate proposal, no big production. They were making dinner together, Vivian chopping vegetables while Lucas stirred sauce, and Jamie was doing homework at the kitchen table. The radio played softly in the background. "Marry me," Lucas said suddenly. Vivian looked up from the cutting board. "What?" "Marry me. I know we've talked about it, but I'm asking for real. Marry me, Vivian. Build this life with me permanently." Vivian set down her knife, her eyes wide. "You're serious?" "Completely serious. I don't have a ring yet. We can pick one out together, but I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So marry me." Jamie's head popped up from his homework. "Wait, are you proposing right now, without getting down on one knee or anything?" "I'm proposing." Vivian laughed, tears streaming down her face. Yes, of course I'll marry you." Lucas crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and kissed her, dipping her slightly because Jamie was cheering and it felt like the moment required dramatic flair. "We're getting married," Jamie shouted. "I'm going to have a mom again." They pulled apart, both looking at Jamie. The boy's hand flew to his mouth. "Sorry, if that's okay. I know she's not my actual mom, but..." Vivian knelt down in front of him, taking his hands. "Jamie, I would be honored if you wanted to think of me that way. I love your dad, and I love you. If you want to call me mom, you can. If you'd rather stick with Vivian, that's okay too. Whatever feels right to you." Jamie threw his arms around her neck. "I want to call you mom. If that's really okay." "It's more than okay." Lucas watched them, his heart so full it hurt. This family they'd built from loneliness and chance encounters and choosing to see each other. It was real. It was theirs. The wedding happened in March, small and intimate. Just family and close friends in Rachel's backyard, which she'd decorated with white lights and spring flowers. Jamie stood with them as they exchanged vows, holding the rings with solemn importance. "I promise to love you," Lucas said, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him, "to support you, to see you always, not just as my partner, but as the incredible person you are. You saved me when I didn't even know I needed saving. You gave me a future I'd stopped believing in. I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how extraordinary you are." Vivian's vows were simpler, but no less powerful. "I promise to let you in, even when it's scary, to trust you with my fears and my hopes, to build a life with you based on honesty and respect and love that doesn't quit. You taught me that being strong doesn't mean being alone. I promise to never forget that." When they kissed, Marcus wolf whistled from the audience. Jamie cheered. Rachel cried into her champagne. The reception was loud and joyful, filled with dancing and terrible speeches, and a cake that was almost too beautiful to eat. At one point, Lucas found himself standing with Marcus near the drinks table. "Remember when you told me life's too short to let fear make all the decisions?" Lucas asked. "Yeah, look at you now, married, promoted, happy." "I'm terrified half the time." "That's how you know it matters." Marcus raised his glass. "To being brave enough to want good things." Lucas clinked his glass against Marcus's. "To being brave." As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Lucas found Vivian and Jamie sitting together on the porch steps, looking at the stars. "Room for one more?" he asked. "Always," Vivian said, scooting over. Lucas sat down, Jamie immediately leaning against him. They sat there together, this family built from rain and risk and choosing to believe in second chances. "You know what's weird?" Jamie said after a while. What's that? Lucas asked. A year ago, it was just you and me, and now we're three, and it feels like this is how it was always supposed to be. Vivian wrapped her arm around Jamie. That's because it is. Lucas looked at his son, at his wife, at the life they'd built from nothing but hope and hard work and refusing to give up on the possibility of happiness. He thought about that night in the rain, the question that had slipped out, the moment everything changed. He'd been so afraid. Afraid of wanting too much, of reaching for something beyond survival, of believing he deserved more than he had. But somewhere between that rainstorm and this moment, he'd learned something crucial. Healing didn't arrive as a dramatic rescue. It came as empathy offered at the exact moment you were ready to collapse. It came as someone choosing understanding over judgment. It came as small kindnesses that accumulated into something transformative. It came as love, steady, patient, and earned. "What are you thinking about?" Vivian asked, studying his face. Lucas smiled. "Just how lucky I am, how lucky we all are." "We make our own luck," she said, "by showing up, by trying, by not giving up." "Then I'm lucky we both kept showing up." Jamie yawned, leaning heavier against Lucas. "Can we go home soon? I'm tired." "Yeah, buddy, let's go home." They said their goodbyes, accepted hugs and well wishes, and drove back to their apartment through quiet streets. Jamie fell asleep in the back seat, and Lucas carried him inside, tucking him into bed with practiced care. When he returned to the living room, Vivian was standing by the window, still in her wedding dress, looking out at the city lights. "Hi, wife," Lucas said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Hi, husband." She leaned back against him. "We did it." "We did. I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "I know the feeling, but we're okay. We're going to be okay." Vivian turned in his arms, looking up at him with eyes full of everything they'd built and everything still to come. "Yeah, we really are." They stood there in the gentle darkness of their home, holding each other, no longer afraid of the future because they'd learned the most important lesson of all. Strength wasn't about endurance or control or carrying everything alone. Strength was presence. It was vulnerability. It was showing up for each other even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. It was choosing connection over isolation, hope over fear, love over safety. And that choice, made every single day in 1,000 small ways, changed everything, completely, and for good.